Welcome, everybody, to the ProfessionalQuest Careers in HR and Recruiting, presented by the Office of Career Services in the Costello College of Business here at George Mason University. Our first question for our panelists is really, I just want to have you all introduce yourselves, what you do, and what led you to pursue a career in your chosen field. And we
I
can
can go
start with,
first.
yeah,
Oh, does
Casie,
it
go ahead.
matter? Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Casie. I am the HR junior generalist working at Citrin Cooperman. We are an accounting firm pretty much based all over the United States. So definitely go check out our website if you're interested in learning more about the company. But I actually kind of hopped into HR through an internship that I got at the same company. I originally planned to go down the mental health path after college, and have always been interested in HR, more of the business strategic side of it, which is really what that generalist role provides. So I've been able to tackle a lot of that in my role from kind of all areas of HR, which is really nice being in that generalist side. So kind of recruiting, onboarding, reporting, HRIS systems, all that stuff. So that's kind of just a quick gist of what I do in my role, but it's been really great so far. And I'm very happy that I kind of took that path. It was definitely the right career move for me.
I can go next. I'm Jessica Cohen. I am currently a federal technical recruiter with Kforce Professional Services. Essentially, what I do is we have a variety of different government contracts, and my job is to find people to fit those contracts and get them submitted over and get them jobs. It's pretty fun. Day to day is great. Same thing every single day, but you get to talk to people and help them get a new job, get new challenges, and hopefully increase their income.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Natalie. I work as an HR specialist with ECS Federal. They are a government contractor based in Fairfax, Virginia. And in my role, I'm on a pretty big HR team. So as a specialist, we do offer letters, a lot of training reimbursements, terminations, things like that. Yeah, I went to George Mason University and I got my start by actually taking an aptitude test at George Mason, and I researched what human resources was about, and it seemed really interesting and lined up with my interests. So here I am.
I can hop in next. Hi, my name is Deirdre Meaney. I am a talent acquisition specialist for Northwestern Mutual. I'm based out of New York City. I kind of fell into this career by accident. I ended up recruiting for a nonprofit, which led me to agency recruitment, where then I kind of fell into talent acquisition and then ended up here internally recruiting for our financial advisor role. And we're based around the United States, so we have offices as well down in Virginia.
And I can go next. Hi, my name is Sophia Zmorzenski, fellow JMU alumni. I'm currently an HR assistant at The Clearing. We are a consultant management company, mostly in private and federal sectors. I have experience as a recruiter as well. I worked for a staffing agency, and now I'm currently an HR assistant. So kind of fell into HR and recruiting. I was also going to be in the mental health field, and then I decided to pivot and got into recruiting. So just love working with people. It's kind of my gist in supporting others.
I can go next. My name is Shahamat Chowdhury. I am a George Mason alum, both for my undergrad and my master's program. I am a senior associate at Capital One, primarily focused on our talent and performance management products. So that's anything from our talent development tool to our Workday to our actual brand new performance management tool that we're creating from the ground up for about 50,000 employees. My first stunt in HR was through the career fair here at George Mason through Northrop Grumman, where I got to run a referral program. And since then, I haven't looked back and have been doing HR ever since.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Our next question here is, what key skills do you believe are most important for someone starting out in HR and recruiting?
I can go. For recruiting, like I would say the top three skills that you can have are clear communication and effective communication. Um, Outgoingness, you got to be able to just pick up the call, like pick up the phone and call people. You can't be afraid of talking to people. And then organization is huge for this role.
I want to second all of those and then also add in as well, like a level of professionalism, especially graduating from any university. You want to really show that you can perform with others, and then also just the ability to like multitask and that you can balance different things coming in.
I would say on like the HR generalist side, definitely being empathic. You're gonna be dealing with a lot of different people, different employee relations issues. So you kind of have to be able to step into other people's shoes and kind of see where they're coming from, be unbiased. And I would also say just patience. There's a lot, it could be overwhelming sometimes. So to Jess and Deirdre's point, it's important to be organized as well. So you can kind of stay on top of that, and then I would also just say being solutions based, you always want to kind of go to your boss or your director with, there's a problem we ran into, but how can we kind of go about this and tackle it? So that's always a really good mindset, I think, to have as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is like being a critical thinker. I think a lot of times like there's going to be situations, I think, sometimes there's going to be situations where you're like, okay, what do we do in this? And we don't necessarily have like the documentation of like, this is exactly how we need to run through this. So a lot of times, like I think the most successful HR folks that I've seen, at our company has been folks that really like to think 10 steps ahead and being able to figure out like, how do we get to this path? And this is the way we're going to get there.
I would definitely agree with that. Not everything is written down, like you said. And then I would also second the customer service side of things. I think especially early in your career, you're going to be answering a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls, and in HR that really never ends. So definitely customer service, and then also staying organized, because usually there are a lot of things that you have to handle at one time.
And I would add all of those sound great for both recruiting and HR, since my background is in both. One thing I would add to both of those positions, if you're interested, is just being extremely detail oriented. We don't want to mess up people's last names or, all this confidential information. So if you are comfortable with handling patient or even employee information, that's something that you'll definitely thrive in this kind of field. And then definitely having like an enthusiasm or passion for speaking with others. I loved doing presentations in college. I loved asking people, talking to people. So that's something that came naturally to me. So if you have a natural ability to do that just as a skill, then this is kind of a field that you would do really great in.
Awesome. Next question is, how has your education prepared you for your role? And do you recommend any specific courses or certifications for aspiring HR or recruiting professionals?
I guess I can start with this one. So I did my bachelor's in business management at George Mason's Business School, which I thought was very well prepped for those entry level type of roles in HR. I did the referral program. I led that at Northrop Grumman, and then I went on to talent acquisition operations and learning and development at my second role at BAE Systems. But to transition to Capital One, I really have to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, what else do I need to do to get there? And that's where I went and got my master's in organizational development and knowledge management. I know there's one at George Mason. There's a ton of different programs as well, but I would definitely say like a master's can be very helpful just from a understanding of like what that next tier level for an HR, whether you want to be an HR exec, whether you want to be at the director level. Like I think the learnings that I got during my master's program really helped me apply to the work I'm doing here at Capital One. There's obviously the SHRM. There's also a ton of different like diversity, equity, inclusion certifications you can get as well. So I would definitely highly like suggest folks to explore all those different opportunities.
Hopping in, I wanted to mention joining agency recruitment. It was great that there really wasn't much that you need to get in the door besides like typically a college degree and good performance in your interview. And I think leading up to that of like thinking like, how can I perform well in a sales environment? Definitely any courses that you can take around like public speaking. If George Mason does offer like sales type courses, I would get into those. Anything around entrepreneurship, like how you are running your own personal business, is a lot of like the goal of most agency recruitment. And then, yeah, if you can start networking as soon as possible, like speak with your professors about what they think you would be good at. There's so many different job titles and intricacies to all of these different career paths that it may be like what one of us doesn't do, like is doing, like isn't specifically for you, but there might be like a role that's very similar within this path. So I recommend just asking around, seeing what people think you would actually do well in.
If you can take a course on interpersonal relationships, that has been like the biggest help, in my opinion, from all 4 years of my college education, was being able to actually listen and pick up on what people are really saying, not just what's coming out of their mouth. That has been like the biggest help for me, in my opinion, for recruiting.
Oh,
Oh.
I just wanted to pop in and say like yes to everything that everyone just said, but also on the technical side, I had wished I knew more about Excel going in into this field. As a psych major, that's just not something that we touched upon in any of our classes, but it is so effective. It's such a helpful tool. I run like VLOOKUP reports and all that kind of stuff. So I would say if you have the opportunity in college or even outside to take a quick Excel class, even at a very basic level, it will go such a long way. So I would recommend that too.
I would definitely second that. There's a ton of Excel in human resources. So for me, I majored in leadership, and so I took a lot of leadership courses. And I was kind of surprised how much they showed up in human resources. You kind of understand how an organization operates, kind of you can see what style of leadership is happening, and then especially if you want to go down like the strategic HR path and like further in your career as you move up, you can kind of apply those directly to the strategic plan. So I would recommend the leadership class, definitely.
I would say going off of Jess's point too, interpersonal communications is such a strong course to take. If you can, it's even like your literature one-on-one class, or if there's something extra you can do, that's definitely helpful. PowerPoint as well. I've made several different kinds of slide decks. So if you can get a little bit familiar more with PowerPoint, you'll be all set. Speaking of certifications, going back to your question, Madison, I would highly recommend if you can afford a SHRM membership, whatever that may be, they have some free certificates. Giving you the inside scoop, there's some free certificates on there that you can do once you have your SHRM membership. So it might be an extra certificate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It might be about getting veterans back to work. Those are all really important topics within the field of HR, and also for recruiting as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. I just wanted to mention that. And if you have the opportunity to as well study for your APHR, your Associates in Professional Human Resources, or your SHRM, which then would be a CP certification. Take a look into that. You definitely just have to study, and I bet these folks would have great study tips or routes there. But that's also just speaking of certifications, those are important.
Awesome. Next question is, how important is networking in this field, and what strategies do you recommend for building professional connections?
It's so important. Um, Again, I can only speak to recruiting, but anybody that I place, their connections go to my connections. And like LinkedIn is your best friend. If you can get to 500 connections on LinkedIn, I believe that you qualify for LinkedIn Premium for free. Do it and do it as quick as possible. Connect with anybody and everybody that you can, because how it works is your first connections, if you post something, they're second, third connections will end up being your second, third connections. You just get a huge berth of like how many people you can connect with. You get a lot of referrals from it. And people that you might not be actively looking for will reach out to you and be like, hey, I have this. You can pro market them out. And then you have a start and added head to your head count, making you money without you even having to try. LinkedIn is like my best friend. So I heavily suggest using LinkedIn as soon as possible.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Jess. So outside of Capital One, I also do career coaching for early career talents. And the one thing I'm always pushing them to do is utilize your LinkedIn. I got my job at Capital One through, I would only just post everything I was doing at my previous role. And then one day a recruiter was like, hey, I really like the content you're posting. Like, do you want to come work for us? And I think very similarly, like sometimes like you'll network with someone and they might have a friend or they might have a new posting. And I think in today's job market, especially, you can't just apply somewhere and wait for someone to call you back. Like you actually have to go be active and like find a recruiter, connect with a recruiter, connect with someone who went to GMU and now works at the company you want to work for. Like I think LinkedIn can be your best friend, and just posting like once a week or just resharing something or just connecting with a fellow person can go such a long way for your journey.
Yeah, I second all of that. And as well as when you are job searching and you send in an application somewhere, I recommend like going to the company page and just looking up like who the talent acquisition is or HR. You might not find the right person, but you can simply ask like if they are the right person and that you wanted to follow up on your resume and speak about the role, as well as if there's like a company that you had in mind and you're not sure if they are hiring, connecting with people who do the job there and asking them how they got in there, how they like the company. The more that you can speak to people, the more that you're top of mind when a role does open. And they can also give you insight into like maybe there is a certification that they had that put them to the top of the applicant pool. So I definitely recommend maximize your LinkedIn connections and reach out to as many people as you can. You don't need to be best friends with everyone on LinkedIn. It's okay if you don't know them very well.
Okay, we can move on to the next question here. What current trends in HR and or recruiting should students be aware of as they prepare to enter the workforce?
I can go. Um, I can't speak for the recruiting side as much, but on at least the generalist side, I would say a major trend that I've at least seen in my 3 years in this role is we're becoming a lot more automated just in general. So definitely get familiar with as many systems as you can. At least on the HRIS side, I've used ADP Workforce Now and Paycom. We just transitioned to Paycom, so that's been super fun to see kind of what that looks like. I would say if you could, learn about any of these systems or maybe take a course on them or play around and get familiar, that would be huge for your career going into an application, applying, even just starting in a new role and having that experience and just that exposure under your belt. I think that would be super, super beneficial. So that's just a trend that I'm personally seeing on the generalist side is just very automated systems based and all that.
I think adding in on like just like every other industry, we also experience layoffs. So I think that's why it's so important to be well connected and to network with other people. Even once you do get into a role, maximize your network and really just like soak up as much as you can in a company. And also like this was one thing I asked when I did join a new company was, like, have you previously laid off? Is this an organic growth? Just being aware of like where if your company has laid off in the past, and it doesn't mean don't take that role, but it does definitely mean that like you might be able to be aware of what internal moves look like and things like that. So nothing to be afraid of, but something to be aware of.
Alrighty. What opportunities or experiences like internships, volunteer work, etc., do you recommend students seek out to gain a competitive edge?
I would say definitely snag an internship if you can. Like I said earlier, I started interning at my company and they ended up hiring me full time, which I'm super grateful for. But I was able to touch upon a bunch of areas in HR because, to everyone's point, it's so broad. You can really go down so many different areas in HR. So I think having some kind of generalist internship will just help you in your own development too, figuring out where you want to go because, there's so many options and you want to make sure that you're picking the right industry for you. So I would say, snag an internship, even if it's after you graduated. I did an internship at post grad, so I didn't jump right into a full-time job, but it was super helpful and it really prepared me for the role that I have now. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I think internships are great. I took a non-traditional route, so I didn't get my first internship until my fifth year of college. And so the first 4 years of college, I actually did retail. So I just worked up as a sales associate and then did like supervisor roles. Those are really transferable skills, like customer service, right? Utilizing problem solving, just customer management. Like there's so many different things that retail translates to HR. I've seen a ton of people come from the retail space into HR. I've also seen people that are like substitute teachers. Those have also done really well to translate into HR. So any of those type of roles, like I know the internship market is really tough right now. Like if you can't land an internship, like just getting a summer job is also very beneficial. Just make sure you speak to it in your resume.
I actually got my I haven't had any internships. I got my first job because I had customer service experience as a waitress, where I was building my own business, and they were like, in recruiting, you build your own business. It is what you make out of it. So having that experience was a huge leg up for me.
I actually did my internship in nothing related to the field that I'm currently in. I thought I wanted to go to law school. I did a law internship. And I actually talked a lot about how, for me, taking the time to explore other things actually led me to seeing like what my real skills were. And honestly, just learning to, and I talk about this in interviews, like learning to use an industrial printer or copier, or unfortunately learning like how to use a fax machine. I've never had been around one, were such important like office skills that college probably never would have taught me. And I talked a lot about those, how like even though the field is pretty different, I did learn like actual tangible skills from it that I could take anywhere, and it was a huge bonus.
I would say too, my internship experience wasn't really an internship. It was just required research for my program for psychology. But in that, I had such transferable skills. I worked in a different data programs. I gave presentations to doctorate level students and those clinicians that are out in the field. Way transferable, more so than I thought at the time, for sure, in my current role. I would also say too, I worked on campus as an administrative assistant or office assistant in offices, like in student offices. So all those on-campus offices that you see, they deal with private student information. I was seeing people's emails. I was seeing some correspondence between individuals. You know, you have your G number, you have those pivotal things that we don't really want to share out all the time. I was kind of the record keeper of that. I got to learn how to use a printer and a fax and those kind of things. That was way more transferable into any kind of role and customer service. So if you can solidify an office job somehow on campus, whatever that may be, I definitely recommend. That was definitely usable.
I would agree. Before I started in HR, I was also an administrative assistant. And I think there are a lot of parallels between that position and what you do early in your HR career. And then similar to Casie, also I got an internship post grad and they ended up taking me on full time. So I think even if I also had a little bit experience, but I was having trouble finding a job. So I would recommend finding an internship if you can.
Awesome. We'll do our last question here and then we will wrap it up. So if you could give one piece of advice to students looking to break into HR recruiting, what would it be?
Be willing to put forth a lot of effort in the beginning because it pays off in the end. So give yourself a solid like year and a half to 2 years of really pushing and even going above and beyond. And I promise it pays off.
I second that. Like, don't be afraid. And also, don't be afraid to take a chance on a role that you're unsure about. If it feels a little out of your comfort zone and you get a really cool job opportunity, which I know sometimes are really hard to come by to start when you're graduating, like, don't be afraid to just hop on it and try it out.
Yeah, I think I would second that. HR is such a vast like type of line of work. There's so many things. There's compensation, there's performance management, there's recruiting. I think, you're not going to know exactly what you want right away when you get into HR. So take on that first role and then, a mentor of mine always told me like try to learn as much as you can in HR because one day you're going to get to the top and you're going to have to know everything about all the little minor details of HR. So whether you get into compensation, recruiting, like take that first role and then you can, further rotate later on.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I would also say just be patient. I know the workforce right now is not the easiest, so just kind of, peruse, take your time to apply to jobs that you know will be a good fit for you. And again, HR is so broad. Give yourself grace when you do get that job, and to Deirdre's point, allow yourself to just, kind of really get in there and see what you're interested in. It takes time to learn everything. So just be patient with that. It's completely normal. And like I said, it's just it's such a broad field. So
I would say just soak everything up like a sponge as much as possible. I think being open-minded is such a strong skill. And take your notes. Find a really good mentor if you can, or like keep your connections from your past companies. Or, when I was on campus, I still have those connections. And I think it's really helpful just to have your network and you can learn from each other. Maybe go to events together or something. Um, Echo everybody else. Everyone else has great points too.
I would agree with that and second that as well. Even though you are done with college and in the working world, you're definitely not done learning. There's still a ton of that, especially early on. And then to your point about keeping connections, I would recommend, or what I found beneficial was having an in-person job for my first job. It is such a different experience from being remote. So if you can stick it out for a couple of years and just go in person, I definitely think that helps networking and then also helps you kind of establish your career.
Well, thank you all for that wonderful advice and for all your insight and wisdom for students who are interested in maybe pursuing this as a career path. And thank you all for being here.